Hello, hi, how are you? Welcome on in to another podcast by George. Well, we're just a couple of minutes late, but it's Monday morning. Got to get the week rolling and get to the big news. The thing that everybody's heard about ad nauseum, the acquittal of Donald Trump. Even the pundits are starting to get it wrong at this time. They're talking about the impeachment failing or that they were trying to impeach him. Nah, he got impeached, folks. That was in the House. We learned that with Bill Clinton. He just got acquitted in the Senate. That's what happened. And we've got our good friend, our political observer, the guy that knows more about this than maybe anybody. It's Dr. Stephen W. Schmidt, the professor of political science emeritus now at Iowa State University. Dr. Politics, as he's known around the world. He's going to give us our perspective. And I want to talk to him a little bit about Iowa senators, too, voting for that acquittal. We're going to get to it. And we're on Facebook Live this morning for our Facebook friends. And I kind of wanted to start here with a little bit of a funny meme here. Let me see if I can bring this up on the screen. You never know until you actually do it. This, I don't know if folks saw this or not. Now, this is dealing with the coronavirus mostly, but it also could be politics. And I'm not a big meme guy. A lot of these things don't strike me as that funny. The Bernie things with the mittens, I mean, that was okay. But honest to God, this is a picture is worth 1,000 words. Look at this thing. Now, this is if the Titanic was sinking today. I don't know if you can read these things. Let me bring this back. The top part of the boat there, the ship, it says it's dry here. The sinking is a hoax. Right in the middle, if I drink fuel, I won't freeze. Nobody can force me to wear a life jacket. My friend had diabetes, so technically that killed her, not drowning. How often have you heard that argument with the coronavirus? Only elders and non-swimmers will die. The lifeboat industry funded this, and then in the bottom right there, which you can't hardly see at all, is 1,500 dead. More people die from heart disease every year. That's kind of the world that we're living in. So let me go to the next slide here. This is a post, and it's small, but you can maybe see it there. This is a post that I made on Facebook, and it has to do with this impeachment proceeding. And I said, it's not a crime for a cheerleader to yell "fight like hell" to a crowd of football fans. And you heard this a lot in the trial in the Senate. What Trump said, what his state of mind was, what he thought, what he felt, what he believed. To me, that was the wrong tack to take on this, because it is a crime for a president to yell "fight like hell" to thousands of internet-crazed nincompoops wearing military gear and bison horns, by the way, in Washington, D.C. to overturn an election. 43 U.S. senators, 2 from Iowa, didn't seem to know this. So let's stop that. Let's get back here and bring in our good friend, Doc Politics. Doc, to me, that was the crucial question here. I mean, there wasn't anything that wasn't dealt with in this trial, but I didn't think that that was dealt with enough. They spent a lot of time. They had a lot of video. It was compelling theater, which is what politics is. It was compelling television, which is what our modern media is, to see these people overrunning the Capitol again. They had some film that we hadn't saw before, but I kept wanting to yell at the TV. This isn't in question. We know what happened. 5 people, I think, died in this thing. They just kept regurgitating that, but it wasn't so much what happened. It wasn't so much, to me, even what Trump said or did. It was who he said it to. I wanted to see more video and photos of those armed insurrectionists with spears and clubs and weapons. Trump was yelling fire in a crowded theater to those folks. And like I said, I know it was discussed somewhat, but that was my take on it. What was your overall perspective?
There was never a chance that Donald J. Trump was going to get convicted by the Senate.
Yes.
Okay. I don't care what you showed, how you showed it, how you talked it, whether you did it longer or shorter, whether you had afterwards witnesses. None of it mattered, because what we keep forgetting is that impeachments are not violations or assault charges in the courts. They're political trial. And when Republicans said this is all, the Democrats are politicizing. Impeachments are a political trial of a president or a judge. You know, there are all kinds of impeachments, not just of the president, for violating their oath of office, which is plenty fuzzy. What constitutes a violation of their oath of office? You know, and Donald Trump never said, go attack the Capitol and hang Mike Pence. He never, there was no smoking gun, in other words, connecting the insurgency to Trump. Yes, he stirred people up. Yes, he told people at rallies, go beat the crap out of this person and I'll pay your legal bills. We have never had a successful conviction in an impeachment of a president. Well, in the entire history of this country. So does that mean that all the different presidents were really great guys and they never did anything that required a conviction? And the answer is, who knows? Because impeachment doesn't work. So let's move on, to other things. There was no way that the Democrats could present evidence that would convince enough Republicans to join the Democrats and convict President Trump or former President Trump. There's nothing. The Constitution is very vague. And when I talk about it in my classes, I always say the great strength of the American Constitution is that it's vague and it can be adapted to the 21st century or the 19th century or the 18th century. Well, yeah, but the weakness of the darn thing is it's not very specific, and it's in the book.
It is in the book. You're exactly, and I get your point. I guess my only point was him telling people to fight that are well armed, carrying guns and spears and clubs. One guy, I'll never forget, he had an axe handle that was made to look like a flagpole that he was carrying, a flag. Yes. To me, that is the same as saying go to the Capitol and shoot people and hang Mike Pence. But that's just me. I mean, it's a nuanced thing. Do you think that? No, go ahead.
But my point is, it still wouldn't have gotten those Republicans to say, number one, impeaching a former president who is no longer president is constitutional, because the Constitution is real vague on it. Number two, they were not going to yield to, number one, to Democrats. And number two, I think they're worried about the 30% or more of Americans who are sticking with Donald Trump come hell or high water. And they're concerned about it. And they should be, because, the reason that Senator Grassley and Senator Ernst didn't vote to convict him is because they're principled leaders and they believe that a former president shouldn't be impeached, or they were worried that Iowa Republicans would censor them and Iowa voters would not vote for them if they convicted him. There are lots of things playing together. Look at what's happening today in the United States to some of the senators, to all the senators in the Republican Party who voted to convict. They're all getting censored by the state Republican parties all over the country.
Well, it is political. I mean, and you mentioned it, and our own now. Grassley issued a statement after the Senate hearing, and he was citing that technicality that you're talking about, which was kind of the golden parachute for those folks, that they could pop that and say, well, Trump's out of office and whatever. But my God, Grassley was in office and voted to convict Bill Clinton. I mean, it's just shocking to me that in his doddering old age, he's become such a political, when actually he came to power from the state of Iowa because he was willing to stand against his party on some things anyway. But I guess those days are long gone. Well, I wanted to bring.
No, he still doesn't like $9,000 toilet seats on airplanes, which, he was pretty good at trying to get the Defense Department to behave. It's a very inflamed political world out there, and our viewers know that. Passions are running incredibly deep. There is now a group of Republicans or let's call them Trump supporters, who are going to start something called the Patriot Party. That's
Yes.
the breaking news this morning is they don't care. And it's not President Trump, apparently, who's behind that. It is independently people who like Trump and who think the Republican Party is, rhinos, and they're starting this new party.
Well, that's something that I wanted to get to next. I'm bringing this article up on screen because it talks about the fact that the Republicans may split. I mean, there's been this talk before, and Doc, you and I have talked about this a lot, the duopoly of American politics between the Democrats and the Republicans.
Yeah.
They talk about it a lot, but when push comes to shove, because everything is so political, the Republicans aren't stupid. They realize that if they split their party, they're going to lose to the Democrats, and they will lose their holy trinity, unholy trinity, as I put it, taxes, abortion, and gun rights. But if that were to happen, that's very interesting to me, because I've been pushing for a splitting of the party on the left. And of course, one of the biggest arguments is you can't do that, because if you do, you'll be empowering the Republicans for the rest of our lives and maybe forever. But if the Republicans take the initiative here, as you're talking about, and they split the Republican Party, that would give great impetus and peace of mind to the people on the left to go ahead and split their party. Then we have a multiple party system, and then a 30 or 40% fraction of the electorate could actually prevail and win. Now, again, the Electoral College is involved in this, and our process really isn't suited for that. But do you think the Republicans are serious? Do you think that they might actually do this, or is that just talk? And, you have a lot of talk after an election. It seems like I remember when George W. Bush was defeated by Obama, there was a lot of talk about the GOP is over with for our lifetime. I mean, stick a fork in them. They're gone and they ain't never coming back. Obama got defeated, or won twice, rather, defeated the Republicans twice. And then look where we're at. So are we just talking at this point, or is there something more serious afoot, do you think?
Let me put it this way, George. The United States is maybe the only country in the world that has only two political parties.
Yes.
Most countries have more than that.
Yes.
European countries have the Greens, and they have the Social Democrats and the Christian Democrats, and they have multiple parties that allow people to vote for candidates and for policies that actually fit their particular view of the world. In the US, you have to vote for a party that kind of fits your interests. Like you said, that the Democrats sort of fit the left of center, and the Republicans sort of fit the right of center, but not very precisely. So it wouldn't be shocking if we ended up, as I've always said, with four political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, and then a very conservative party on the right, much more conservative consistently than the Republicans, and a much more liberal party on the left. I mean, that is something that is more realistic in most of the world. You pointed out that the election laws in the United States punish anyone who is not a Democrat or a Republican, because the laws are written in such a way that the way the parties can register candidates, can get on the ballot, makes it tough for any third party to get on the ballot and third party candidates to get on the ballot. But it's not impossible. I mean, look, politics is evolutionary. It's constantly changing. Parties are constantly moving in different directions. The South used to be all Democrat. Now the South is all Republican. And I show my students this map of the United States back when, the South was bad and other parts of the country were Republican. Then I show them a recent map, and it's all flipped over. The blue and the blue and the red are opposite today from what they were after the Civil War. So I think we're seeing a fluid political system. We're seeing a unpredictable environment. There are a lot of people that are very angry about all kinds of different things, George. all kinds of different things. You name it, unemployment, fact that we are a country that is one of the modern, powerful, wealthy countries in the world, and we can't even develop testing so that we can see what version of the coronavirus is running through our system. We're now suddenly testing now, finally, a year later, and discovering, whoa, there are all these different varieties. Why does it take so long? What is the matter with us that we can't perform a little better?
Doc, the thing that really intrigues me about you is because I've talked about it before, and I don't mean to be insulting at all, but you're an older political science person. You've been around forever. You've seen a lot of this. What was your take on this personally? I mean, have you ever seen anything like this? And was this an affront to you, or was this just like you said, a political trial and just politics as usual, or is this something more than that?
No, my job is to be cold as ice, to stand
Yeah.
back, to look, to not inject whatever my political views are, and to try to understand it and say, why did this happen? And it happened because that's how politics works. Number two, it happened because the impeachment process is ill-defined in the Constitution, and therefore people are very unwilling to convict their guy, maybe someday a woman, in the impeachment process. The Democrats were sure as heck not going to go ahead and convict Bill Clinton for, having some sexual relations in a pantry in the Oval Office,
Yeah.
then lying about it. And the Republicans are sure as heck not going to impeach Donald J. Trump for something a lot more serious than what Bill Clinton was, impeached on. Remember, there's impeachment and conviction. Donald Trump has been impeached twice, has never happened before in history. He's the winner. He must be pretty happy about that because he's number one on impeachment. But conviction, it's tough to get that. And so I watched it. I thought, geez, this looks just, I lived in Colombia when I was a younger guy. I, grew up there. And I thought, this looks like Colombia when I was a kid, when the FARC guerrillas took over and invaded the Supreme Court of Colombia and massacred half of the Supreme Court justices because the Supreme Court was about to vote to extradite people convicted by the US of drug dealing. They killed half of the Supreme Court. I was invited by the State Department to go and speak to the Colombian Supreme Court a year or two after that. And they had moved into a tall building where every time the elevator door opened, there were Colombian troops with machine guns standing by. The building was surrounded, was a hardened facility. And I spoke to the Colombian Supreme Court. There were the portraits of all of the assassinated Supreme Court justices hanging in this building, which was a kind of a impromptu Supreme Court venue. And I thought, boy, we came close to that this time. How strange. This is the US.
Yes. We're closer than we think. I looked at that and here's what occurs to me. And I try to explain this to people and they think, I don't know, some people take this as supporting Trump or whatever, but I look at it and I say, look, I just saw some statistics that said that 30% of Americans aren't going to get a vaccination. Well, coincidentally, 30% of Americans are hardcore Trump supporters. 30% of Americans are completely capable, and we just saw it in the Congress and in this impeachment trial. 30% can screw up the entire system. They can, they have, and they will. So my point is, we got to learn to live with them. We've got to, reminds me of my wife when she's with kids that are combative. Like I said in my Facebook and my tweet there, if you fight with a kid, you're going to get nowhere. You've got to distract them. You got to love them up. You got to be smarter than they are. So if it were up to me, and this would be my advice to Joe Biden and the Democrats, it's fait accompli at this point. There's nothing to be done about who they are, where they're at. They're well armed. They've proven they're willing to do something about it. So give them something. Here's what we do, folks. Give them COVID relief. Give them health care. Give them an end to these wars. Give them a solution to climate. Get them thinking about these other issues, and finger pointing and squaring off in this pro wrestling format on cable television is literally going to get us nowhere. In fact, it's going to take us backward. We've got to get out of this, and we can't spend running up the 2022 midterms now and the 2024 election talking about QAnon on CNN and MSNBC. Fox can't spend their time talking about stolen elections and Antifa. If we do that, we're all screwed. Now, they may choose to do it. We can't control them, but we can choose whether or not we patronize it, whether or not we watch it. We just have to, and Doc, you're an old sailor, we got to take a different tact.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you take a different tack, you have to have a chart and know where you're going. And you can't just take a different tack, because you'll end up on a reef, or you'll end up, somewhere where you really didn't want to go. You have to know where you want to be. And we don't know where we want to be. And frankly, you mentioned a whole list of things. Those are the things you and progressives are interested in. Those are not the things that conservatives, Trump supporters, and others, and those who voted for Trump, and many of them, and those who were angry in DC and other places, think are important. That a lot of their anger is at integration, at race, at Black Lives Matter, defund police, at gay, lesbian, bisexual rights, and letting sports teams and toilets be open to men who are transgendered. Look at what the Iowa legislature talks about. That's
my God, yes.
Concern,
right off the hop. They get control of both houses, the Republicans do, and they get right to work on abortion and gun rights. My God, every man, woman, and child in the state, in the country, has 3 or 4 weapons. We don't have enough of them. We got to make sure that we can secure weapons. There isn't anybody's been denied a gun in this country, as far as I know, unless they're a convicted felon going back to John Wilkes Booth. But that's number one on the hit parade. What I would say, Doc, about Donald Trump. Now, don't forget, he promised those people that he was going to bring them health care, that he was going to get a better health. He lied about health care. He promised that he was going to bring the troops home, end the wars. He lied. He didn't do it. He promised them that he was going to get their jobs back from overseas. That's kind of integrated in that, that immigration issue that you talked about. But he lied. He didn't do any of those things. Those people, that 30% core of kooks, or whatever better term you want to use out there, that it may not be top of their list, but it's important enough. I think my argument would be it's important enough to them to distract them, to get them to move away from this pro wrestling thing that we're currently involved in and focus on some other things, particularly if they start getting a check in the mail in the way of COVID relief. And LBJ did that. Remember, Doc? I mean, he was the guy, you got to love him up. You got to hug him. That dude, he knew politics. He really did.
I still think that the conservatives, the right, 30%, maybe, 70 million people, something like that, 74 million voted for Donald Trump.
Yes.
That's a lot of people,
George. You bet it is.
A lot of people. And you cannot talk them out of, I just talked to a friend of mine who is a Catholic priest, and at their church, they have a shrine to the unborn. You can't talk them out of being opposed to abortion. You can't give them health care and say, okay, here's health care. Now you have to be supportive of the right of a woman to have an abortion. No, that isn't going to work. You can't say to them, look at all the people that are getting shot all the time, and bank robbers and school shootings and domestic shootings. So we need gun control. And they go, no, gun control. Want to take away our guns. There are legislatures in the U.S. right now that have just voted to do away with any kind of permitting for concealed weapons, so you can carry a concealed weapon. There are legislatures in this country that are saying, yeah, you can bring your guns into the state house.
Yeah. Iowa.
You can't talk them out of that by saying we're going to improve public education. Those are hardened positions that, neither you nor I nor anyone else really can talk people out of. And we have to just accept the fact that we are a country where large numbers of people believe one thing and another huge number of people believe something completely different. What we have to try and do is talk about the things that we can agree on and try and not argue each other out of, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And, political correctness and, stoking schools to, do new curriculums that a lot of people are really opposed to. I had a communication from a former student of mine who said, why aren't we teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic in the schools? Why are we bringing in highly divisive issues that, yes, maybe we teach more about those, but it's lighting fires all over the place. And in Iowa, there's discussion about yanking money from public schools that introduced this curriculum about slavery that the New York Times sort of
1619 project. Yeah.
Right. Why do we go to the flame? Why are we like moths and go to the flame? And we're going to get burned when we go to the flame. And, I'm just an old country political scientist from Nevada, Iowa, and I am old. And I look at all this and I go, why don't we just kind of cool all that off? And myself teaching in the classroom have been attacked for being white, for being a white Hispanic. I have to teach Latin American politics because I'm privileged and I'm white. Well, you know how much I'm going to, love that, right? I'm not going to love that. I'm not going to love that. So when we start encouraging that kind of dialogue, we're going to have fires all over the place. And I'm a pessimist. Yeah, I'm a pessimist, but I call myself a realist. Things are not going to get much better. Things are going to get a heck of a lot worse because we're on collision courses on all of these things. University professors, have to be incredibly careful what they say. Because if you say something just a little bit wrong that one student in your class is offended by because it's a microaggression, you're in huge trouble. And that is a world in which compromise and getting along and finding things that we have in common is very difficult. It's very, very difficult. And I think that we are going to have a long, long period of time of contention, of divisiveness, conflict, I think violence as well. My friend went to buy a shotgun because his kid is now old enough to go hunting in Iowa. He couldn't find a shotgun.
Sold out, huh?
Sold out.
Yeah.
No guns left.
Yeah.
Sold out.
And we don't have enough. We got to get more.
That's a pretty good possibility that things will go wonky on you.
And the gun issue is an interesting one. You talked about trying to find things you can find common ground on. Okay, the guns are out there. They got them, folks. They got more than enough of them. I mean, we do. Yeah, these guns have been around. There are people right in your neighborhood that have guns that have been around since the Civil War, probably. They don't go anywhere. They last forever. Well, here's what I would do if I was Joe Biden. I'd say, I used to hunt as a kid and I knew guys that hunt and stuff like that. I'm a Second Amendment guy. I mean, I think people ought to be able, I would just say that all the time. Again, distract them, get that gold watch out a little bit. I mean, make friends with some of these people. Tell them, Donald Trump, wasn't such a bad guy in some respects, because he promised, he didn't deliver, but he promised to give people health care. I'm going to give you health care, Medicare for all through the duration of this pandemic. You're going to be able to go to your doctor's office and get treated for this COVID and for anything else that you want free. It's on me. All you got to do is sign up and, become part of the fabric of America again. I don't know what you want to call it, but, those types of things. Here's a $2,000 check to help get you through. I mean, I'm going to push this through to everybody. Remember that Donald Trump guy? Yeah, well, he wanted to give people a $2,000 check. He didn't deliver. I don't know if he was serious or not, but I'm going to do it. And play just like the example that I used with the mad kid, try to that's the only solution that I got. I mean, hug them up. That's what LBJ said.
My parents used to try that, and when I didn't do it, they would chase me around the piano with a belt. I remember my mom chasing me around the piano in the living room.
That's what we're doing on cable TV every night.
I got spanked when I was a kid, and I respected my parents for it. They never really hurt me, but it was like, yeah, well, this is pretty serious. It's not just a negotiation between the parent and the kid, which is what we do now, and George, the national debt is growing. The federal budget deficit is incredibly high, bigger than the entire U.S. economy. And so there are a lot of people who say, wow, we can't just throw more money at all this. That's what the socialists do. We can't give our children, the burden of a massive national debt that they're going to have to pay off. It's welfare. We're paying people, to be nice, and we just can't do that. So even what you're saying, which I agree that people, really need and want something that will make their life better. But then there's also that other side, which is, well, at what cost is that? I can go out with my credit card and buy all kinds of great stuff, but then the bill starts coming in every month, and I'm going, holy moly, I've got to pay this off. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to have to cut back on something at that point, even though, the federal budget is just electronic money. There's no... And so people want to go back to the gold standard, so that $1 actually is worth so many.
That ain't happening.
Gold that is at Fort Knox. So there is so much. There's so many options as to how to stabilize the political environment, and I'm watching it with some concern. I'll be honest with you. I'm not completely disconnected from it, because it affects my life. It affects my family and my friends. But I try not to be partisan. I really try not to be partisan.
Well, that's why I want you. That's why you're on the show, because I am.
Conservative students in my class think I'm a liberal. Liberal students think I'm a freaking conservative. So I wear that. I should have a T-shirt made that says, that on it, because I try to just not get into the fight. I have a dog, and when we go to the dog park in the summer, a bunch of other dogs start scrambling and barking and biting each other. My dog is really smart. She stays back and watches it and decides when to go and play with one of the dogs. I'm like that. I taught her that. Don't get in the middle of a fight. Just watch it, study it, think about what it means. And we need politicians who can go back to reaching across. I have a great PowerPoint slide that shows how much Democrats and Republicans in Congress used to interact with each other. And I have a slide from 2019 or 18 that shows how they're not interacting with each other at all anymore. Republican and Democratic Congress people are not getting together, not going out to lunch, not going out for a beer after the session is over, not trying to cooperate on legislation. They are completely separated. That's not good.
Well, Doc, we're out of time. We did have some comments that I didn't get to. One of them was, and we can do this very quickly, but if we see the separation of the parties like we've been talking about, is a ranked choice voting a possibility? Then is that much more likely to come about if we have obviously more than just the two parties to vote for?
Right. Well, you have to pass and make ranked choice voting legal. But in Maine, they have ranked choice voting, and it hasn't worked very well.
It
There's
hasn't?
studies that say, nah, ranked choice voting can actually be pretty bad, can produce bad results. And in some cases, it means a monopoly by one party, if voters vote that way. So they're most politicians in state houses are not going to pass ranked choice voting.
No, because they're partisan. Yeah. They're big in their own parties. I mean, it's not good for their two-party system. I mean, obviously. Well, we're out of time. I hate this. I want to give you a last word, though, Doc. I mean, put a bow on it here for us. Take us out. Anything in closing, particularly on the impeachment, as to where we're headed next, your feeling about where we are right now?
Absolutely. My final word is that Mitch McConnell and other Republicans said, we're not going to convict Donald Trump because he's going to be charged with all kinds of things, and he's going to be in court actually testifying to defend himself if he can find any lawyers that actually can speak a coherent sentence, which
and work for free.
he couldn't do that for the conviction, even though he got acquitted. But he's going to be sued for all kinds of different things. So I think Donald Trump is going to be very busy, even if he didn't get convicted by the Senate, trying to basically salvage Trump Industries, his company, his golf courses, his hotels, his stake in real estate properties, and for those of you who wanted him convicted, that at least is some relief, because that he's going to have a lot of busy things that he really doesn't want to face. That's my final word. Donald Trump is, politically, he probably won't run for president again. Why would you do that? It's such a terrible job. You can never really win. But he can certainly support certain candidates, but he'll be very busy trying to stabilize the Trump brand and himself.
Well, that's well said, as always. Folks, that's Dr. Stephen W. Schmidt. He's the professor from political science emeritus at Iowa State University. He's our go-to guy, our frequent guest here on Podcast by George. Doc, thanks again, particularly coming on live here this morning to talk about the impeachment on the PBG.
Thank you very much. I always enjoy visiting with you.
Folks, that's going to wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for watching live on Facebook, especially. This video will be on all of our other platforms, and the audio will be on iTunes and places like that also. But for right now, that's going to wrap it up. That's all there is, and there ain't no more. That's another podcast by George.